1, 2, 3, 4.
You just got a forecast from an AI model that says, do the opposite of what your gut says. You have 4 minutes before the meeting. Is that a performance problem? Or is physiology making the call before judgment gets a vote? Before we go into this, here is my standing line. Everything I share comes from my experience and my opinion as a coach. It's not a diagnosis and it's not a fact about you. You decide what fits. Welcome to the AI Cafe Conversation Podcast, the only podcast where neuroscience, AI, and leadership intersect. My name is Sahar Andrade, and I am a neuro leadership coach. 3 weeks ago, as CFO, I coach opened her laptop to a dashboard that had already run the numbers. The AI forecast tool flagged a supply contract as high risk and recommending pulling out. Her gut said the opposite. She had built that vendor relationship for 6 years. She had 4 minutes before she had to answer in the room. That is not a hypothetical anymore. A 2026 Deloitte survey found that 60% of leaders now use AI in some part of their decision making, and only 5% say they manage that shift well. The tools moved faster than the judgment did. Here is what nobody tells you about that moment. The 4 minutes she had were not really a thinking problem. They were a physiology problem. The instant a machine hands a leader recommendation that contradicts the read on the room, the brain treats it the same way it treats any other unresolved threat. A decision with unclear stakes, made under a clock, with an audience watching for the answer. I hear versions of this story every month now. A VP got an AI-generated churn prediction that said to cut a product line his team had championed for a year. A hospital administrator got an AI staffing model that contradicted what her charge nurses were telling her on the floor. A school district superintendent got an AI enrollment forecast that recommended closing a program 3 community members had just publicly praised. Different industries, same 4 minutes, same physiology. Here is the mechanism, taught outward, not aimed at any one listener. The amygdala threat response is the brain's fast danger detection system. It does not wait for a full analysis. It flags a threat first and asks questions later. Take hostages first. Just kidding. Because for most of human history, waiting for the full analysis got you eaten. It cannot tell the difference between an actual predator and an unresolved decision with a clock running and an audience watching. This is not only a boardroom phenomenon. I see the same 4 minutes physiology in a plant manager reading an AI predictive maintenance alert that contradicts 20 years of knowing the sound of his own machines. And in marketing director, watching an AI attribution model reassign credit away from the campaign her team believes actually moved the number. The industries change, the clock and the threat response do not. When an AI system hands a leader a recommendation that conflicts with their own read, that's exactly the kind of unresolved threat the amygdala, our threat center, was built to catch. Not because the AI is dangerous, because the moment carries every ingredient the threat system is tuned for: uncertainty, time pressure, and social stakes. The brain does not evaluate the quality of the forecast. It reacts to the shape of the moment. And the shape of an AI disagreement, machine says one thing, years of earned judgment says another, is one of the sharpest shapes a modern leader will meet in a given week. Read the Deloitte gap carefully again. 60% adoption, 5% who manage it well. That is not a training gap. Most of these leaders have been briefed on the tools. Some have sat through hours of AI literacy sessions. It's a physiology gap. Nobody trained the amygdala to slow down just because the threat now arrives on a dashboard instead of in the grass. And no solid deck about prompt engineering touches that. And here is what this caused, and it's not abstract. When a leader is caught in a threat response, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for weighing nuance and holding multiple scenarios at once, gets less blood flow relative to the faster, more reactive circuits. That is not a flaw. It's the design, it's the anatomy, it's the physiology. Under a real physical threat, you do not want nuance, you want speed. But a boardroom decision about a vendor contract is not a physical threat. And the brain does not know that in the moment. So what actually happens under that 4-minute clock is a narrowing. Options collapse to two. Trust the AI completely or override it completely. The middle path, the one where a leader asks better questions of the model, checks it against something the AI cannot see, and makes a generally integrated call, requires exactly the kind of steady, wide lens thinking that a threat response shuts down first. Remember, AI suggests, human decides. Do you know how many discussions I had with my chief of staff on Claude? Back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes AI wins because it makes sense. Sometimes I win because it makes better sense. And that's what AI was. The AI is just here to support us, not to believe it 100%, but at least to learn from it and use it as a support mechanism. So I have watched leaders made both mistakes in the same week. One CEO overrode every AI recommendation on principle, calling it instant, and missed two generally good calls the model got right. Another followed AI recommendation without question, called it trigger, and missed the one time her team's floor level knowledge should have overridden the dashboard. That's exactly what I was saying a minute ago. Neither was wrong about wanting to lead well. Both were caught in the same physiological narrowing, just running in opposite directions. Multiply this across a quarter, across a year. A leadership team that treats every AI-assisted decision as a threat to survive rather than information to integrate does not get faster. It gets brittle. Decisions get made in the 4-minute window instead of the 4-hour window that was actually available because the body already decided the clock was shorter than it was. The EY Ernst & Young 2026 research on this is blunt. 52% of departments are already using AI without real oversight. That you cannot do that. And 78% of organizations say adoption is outpacing the risk management. That is not a technology problem waiting on better tools. That is physiology problem waiting on steadier leaders. And the cost is not only the decision itself. A leader who resolves every one of these 4-minute moments from threat instead of judgment trains their own team to do the same. The team watches how the leader handles the model's disagreement more closely than they watch the model itself. Steadiness at the top is contagious. So is the narrowing as well. A room that watches its leader flinch at a dashboard learns to flinch at dashboards too. And that habit outlives whichever tool triggered it first. This is a longer cost as well, one that shows up slower and matters more. Leaders who spend a year resolving AI disagreements from threat instead of judgment start to trust their own read less, not more. Some overcorrect into defaulting to the model every time because defaulting feels safer than sitting inside the discomfort or of disagreement. Others overcorrect into rejecting the tools altogether and lose real value the AI was actually offering. I would rather leaders sit in that discomfort a little longer than resolve it either direction just to make the feeling stop. Both are physiology decisions wearing a strategy costume. So, if this is a physiology problem, the fix is not a smarter dashboard. It's a steadier leader looking at the dashboard. Here is what changes the 4 minutes. Before the meeting, before the model's recommendation even loads, a leader who is grounded has access to the full range of their thinking. A leader already in a threat response only has access to the narrow range. The work is not reacting faster to the AI, it's arriving steadier before the AI ever speaks. Brain is the framework I built for exactly this kind of moment. The space between a fast moving input, whether that input is a person, a market, a model, and the leader's real response. It gives leaders a way to catch the narrowing before it makes the decision for them. This matters more, not less. As AI moves into more of the decision layer, the tools are not going to slow down. A 2026 CHRO Association survey found AI adoption is now the top concern for 91% of HR leaders. 91%. Not because the technology is bad, but because the humans making the calls around it have not been given anything to steady themselves with. The organizations that will actually benefit from AI assisted decisions are not the ones with the best models. They are the ones whose leaders can stay wide lens under a 4-minute clock instead of collapsing to a coin flip. I want to be precise here about this. What this is not. It's not slower decision making for its own sake. It's not distrust of the tools. Some of the best calls I have watched leaders make this year came from taking an AI recommendation seriously and then asking one more question it could not answer. That question only shows up when the leader is steady enough to ask it instead of reacting to disagreement itself. What this looks like in practice is smaller than people expect. It's not a retreat, not a meditation app, not a 2-week course. It's a leader who has trained one specific pause into the seconds before a hard call. This way, the nervous system arrives to the decision already steady instead of arriving there and then trying to come down in front of them. It will not happen. That gap, steady first versus steady after, is the entire difference between a leader who integrates an AI disagreement well and one who either carves to it or fights it. Steadiness comes before strategy. Always steady before strategy. That has always been true. It's just more visible now because the clock got shorter and the inputs got faster. I can hear some of you already. I don't have 4 minutes to get steady. The model already flagged it. I have to decide now. Here is the thing. You don't need 4 minutes to get steady. You need about 90 seconds. And most leaders spend that time rereading the dashboard instead. The nervous system does not need a retreat. It needs one breath, low enough, to reach the part of the brain that can actually weigh the call. Taken before the door opens, not during the meeting. The leaders who get this wrong are not the ones who are too busy. They are the ones who mistake rereading the data for getting steady. Those are two different actions. One keeps a leader in the threat response, cycling the same numbers without adding real judgment. The other gets a leader out of it And the meeting that follows plays out completely different, even when the final answer ends up the same. I can hear a second objection too. What if I get steady and the model was right and I lose time I didn't have? Getting steady doesn't mean second guessing every recommendation into paralysis. It means the 90 seconds you take either confirm the model fast because a clear head sees clearly, or surface the one real objection you believed was tracking. Either way, the decision that follows is a decision, not a flinch. If this is the moment you keep hitting, the 4 minutes where the model says one thing and you read says another, this is exactly what we work through life in the pressure. One session, one model, one protocol, free. Register for the pressure room. The next one is on Thursday, August 27th at 11 a.m. Pacific. I will leave the link in the notes. If you have ever sat in that 4-minute gap between a machine's answer and your own, this is built for that exact seat. Leadership doesn't fail, nervous systems do. Steady before strategy. This is Sahar Andrade. I am a neuro-leadership coach. I specialize in the neuroscience of pressure and leadership under pressure. This was our Friday Forbes article podcast, the short one. Before I leave, show me some love. Register, rate, share, comment on our podcast. Thank you for your support and making us one of the top 2% global podcasts. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to the podcast. Till I see you on our regular podcast on Wednesday. Peace